Kids and cadets, welcome back to Tommy Time. This is a Husky Generator I've been working on. It's a 6250 watt starting wattage, 5,000 watt running wattage. It's got a Subaru engine, as you recall. The carburetor was Mickey Moused on this thing. Somebody had put a beer can with a plastic tube on it for a bowl. I went ahead and replaced the carburetor with an aftermarket one, installed it. If you can see down there. So what I had done was drained all that shitty gas out of this thing, and I got this thing to start, but after a little while I noticed some fuel leaking out of the bottom of this thing. I knew I had to address the rust in here, so I had noticed on the bottom here a couple of pinholes, so fuel was coming out at the bottom. I just put some of that Kufada Chinese AB compound here over the pinholes, because the product I use, the Red-Kote, it pours like syrup, maple syrup or corn syrup, and it would come through these pinholes. This was just to keep the Red-Kote in the tank and not dripping out of here. So I'll tell you how the process works for this. I got rid of all the old gas out of the tank. I put a little fresh gas in, shook it around, shook that out. Then I used a regular siphon with water, put water in it to try to get the large chunks of rust out. Did a pretty good job of that. Then flushed it out with acetone, let it dry, and then I put apple cider vinegar in it. This is 5% acid. I have a 5-gallon bucket with 3 gallons of apple cider vinegar in it. I just keep using it for the motorcycle tanks that I need to rehab. So when I dump the cider vinegar out of the tanks, I filter it to get all the rust particles and just keep reusing it. Maybe every once in a while I'll add a fresh quart to liven things up to the 3 gallons that I have. So you can get this anywhere. You can actually get it in 1-gallon jugs at various places. Save a lot. Dollar Tree, you could probably find it there. So I let that sit for 24 hours. Poured all the apple cider vinegar into my 5-gallon can again. Used some more acetone to flush it out. Let that dry. Then it was time for my Red-Kote. You can see here's some that spilled off. It's like a gooey resin that'll harden over time. It's about $25 a quart. So I poured this in with a funnel, and so what you do is just keep turning the tank side to side slowly. You don't want to shake it up and create air bubbles. You just want to let that Red-Kote flow like maple syrup. You let it flow to the one side, you just keep turning this all the way around till all four sides are coated. It'll actually block up your drain here, so you want to make sure you put a little compressed air in here after you're done sealing to open up this tube, because it'll block this tube up, your drain tube, which I did. You don't want to blast it full blast in here. It'll make bubbles of this stuff, so a little bit of air pressure here to make sure this opens up, and then just let it sit something like this where it's not going to pool in the bottom of this corner. Maybe stand it up something like that where it pools somewhere else. But over 24 hours, leave this thing in the sun, and this stuff will harden up. So if the sunlight was a little better, I'd show you the inside. Maybe I can. I don't know if you can see anything. So in the meantime, when I was running this thing, I had put another filter on it, and you can see all the rust particles that were in here prior to me rust coating it with Red-Kote. So this would have just kept plugging this fuel filter up, so I got to throw another filter on it. This one has a tiny magnet here, which is doing a good job getting the rust particles here. So this thing's ready to be put back together. A little bit of Red-Kote in here to seal it. I gave back the yellow Champion to my buddy. He gave it to his neighbor, and so this is the last half of that project. So aftermarket Mikuni carb on this, and then rust coating the tank here with Red-Kote. It goes a long way. What you can do is pour out the excess in the tank, but I made sure that I didn't overfill it so I wouldn't have to try to pour it through the opening again. But normally you would put an excessive amount in and then pour out the remainder. I kept monitoring it, and I would just put enough in to seal top and bottom on the tank. I didn't want to mess with pouring out the excess. So let this sit in the sun. It's been sitting in the sun for 2 days. This is good and hard now, so I can put gas in here. Anyway, that's where we are on the Husky 5,000 watt generator. Going to wrap up this project and go on to something else. Thanks for coming out. A lot of work for a generator. Normally they're not this difficult. It's usually a carb clean. But we kind of started out on a bad note with this thing, and then the rusty tank from leaving fuel in it for 3 or 4 years doesn't help the situation. New kit came with all the gaskets. I paid a little bit extra to get a filter hose and gaskets. Normally you can just buy the carb for cheaper, and you got to try to reuse gaskets. I had torn one and I needed the whole gasket kit. Let this sit in the apple cider vinegar too, and what'll happen is it'll eat the rust away and you get little pinholes. So I took it out of the apple cider vinegar. It would have ate the hell out of this cap. So I stopped. I just got the scaly stuff and then took it out of the cider bath. so it wouldn't disintegrate this whole thing. What's important here is the seal, not so much the metal here. As long as the seal is holding the gas in, no water gets in the tank, we're all set. Have a good day. Be sure to tip your waitress and waitstaff. They depend on you on a daily basis.